Hi, everyone. Welcome to another live edition of the Support is Sexy podcast. I'm so happy to have you all here. And I am super excited about our guest today, my brilliant friend, Lynnette Khalfani-Cox, who is the money coach, known as the money coach, and who has been for many, many years. Her website is askthemoneycoach.com. You should be able to see that in your description. And we're just going to have a real candid money talk today. So as I was telling Lynnette before we got on here, I am in the stage with my own parents who are both 92 and relatively healthy, thank goodness. We are moving from their house they've been in for 30 years here in Georgia to a independent living facility. And then I'm also doing some things with an aunt here who has dementia and looking at some arrangements and things for her. So it really has me in the headspace of not only money, but just preparation for the future. And as Lynnette talked about, she and I just talked about, the future is closer than you think, right? So I'm in my 40s, but I'm still like, what do I need to get in order so I can have things all scheduled out or ready or in print or with the lawyer or whatever they need to be. And Lynnette and I decided that we're going to talk about that. And I wonder, I should say, and I'll ask you this, Lynnette, when we really start, do you feel like maybe people are thinking about this more with everything that happened with COVID and just, people get it? Yeah, it just made you think like, wow, so many young people were passing away. And of course, that was an extreme circumstance. But still, what if you're 29, you die from COVID, or 39, 49, whatever, and your affairs weren't in order? So we're going to talk a little bit about that. But what I want to tell you all first about Lynnette, other than how brilliant she is. As I said, she's the money coach. She's written how many? 15 books, Lynnette?
15 and counting. Yes.
15 and counting books about personal finance. Well, I know she's probably writing right now under the desk, including the New York Times bestseller, Zero Debt, right? The ultimate guide to
financial freedom.
The ultimate guide to financial freedom, which is, again, a New York Times bestseller. Lynnette and I don't know if this is when we first met, but we first worked together, just to tell you how far we go back. 2010, around that time, I was at Black Enterprise, executive editor for the website. I was bringing in some new experts, people who were, specialists in their field. And Lynnette and I started working together and just have not stopped. So throughout the years, I'm like, I have this thing, I'm doing this, this small business university or doing this and doing that. And she not only shows up, but shows up with so much advice. And, to be real, over the years on the personal tips, sometimes I'm like, I am not managing this well. And I'll call in like, what do I need to do? So I just wanted to share that with you all from a personal side, again, starting from as far back as I can remember, 2010, over the years on the Support is Sexy podcast. Also, Lynnette was, I believe, episode 6, I want to say. Something like that. Definitely in the first 10. Early on, it was a great episode. I'll actually put the link for you all in the comments here. Like I say, you can see a link to her website, but I have done 800 and something episodes at this point. So that tells you how far we go back. So, okay, now you're here with Lynnette and you know how great she is, how cool she is. So I want to start asking questions. Any of you who are watching now, or if you watch the replay later, if you have any questions, make sure to put them in the comments. We'll get back to them or I'll share them with Lynnette if it's something we definitely need to ask. Now, as I said, in this space, Lynnette, with my parents and doing all of these arrangements, but even aside from that, say I am someone who is, tell me, what do you think is the best way to do it? Should we say what we should be thinking about at different stages of our lives, 20s, 30s, 40s, et cetera? Or do you prefer to do just tips that all of us should keep in mind?
I think it is good to think about planning for future events at different life stages, because obviously, everybody has a totally different set of needs as you progress and as you live. So you said you're 49, you and I are in the same age category in terms of being Gen Xers. And then baby boomers are just a little bit older than us, then members of the silent generation, retirees, older folks like your parents you were mentioning. Then, of course, underneath us are millennials, who number 72 million strong right now.
Wow.
The largest segment of the population. They've overtaken now the baby boomer generation. And then, of course, right under them is Gen Z, the kind of 21-ish, 22-ish, maybe even an under crowd, the teenage crowd, et cetera. So, everybody at different life stages, going through different things, right? So I think on the planning front, let's kind of hit it right off the bat.
Yeah.
First off, it's never too early to plan. It's never too early to save. It's never too early to think ahead and to do a little bit of gaming and to kind of plan for the what if scenarios. And honestly, a lot of the what if scenarios that we might think are going to happen to us, they absolutely are going to happen to us. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when is it going to happen. And so, like in your case, for example, wow, your parents are 92 and doing actually pretty well on the health front, but they're about to make this major life transition, moving out of their own home into an assisted care facility. Well, we know those kind of things are expensive. The move in and of itself, that can create for some folks a lot of financial challenges. So I think a lot of people who might say, oh, I don't have to worry about retirement stuff. I don't have to worry about, things in my old age. Well, you might be 29 right now, but you know what? You might have to deal with parents, grandparents, relatives, right, or others in your life who are going through it, and their life might affect you. Or you might suffer a disability or some kind of a accident or illness that takes you out of the workforce way sooner than you think. About 1 in 3 people actually goes through a disability of some kind. Even if it's pregnancy, I mean,
you're right.
it is considered a short-term, of course, disability.
Right.
But I'm always talking to folks, Elayne, about what I call the dreaded D's. Downsizing, a death in the family of the main breadwinner, disability, or disease. Because, of course, anytime any of those 5 dreaded Ds, and there's more dreaded Ds we could add to it, but I'll stop there. But anytime something like that happens to you or a member of your immediate family, it's definitely going to have an impact on the wallet and on the finances. So the thing to do around caregiving, for example, and around thinking about your own sort of future is you definitely want to think about your insurance needs and your estate planning needs. So I'm super happy that last summer, Earl and I, my wonderful husband, Earl.
Hey, Earl.
Everybody knows I love me some Earl. So, last summer, we've been through this crazy pandemic, right? And it's been brutal on all kinds of folks, from a mental health standpoint, from a social isolation and distancing standpoint. A lot of older people have been, disconnected from their families, and even, us younger folks and middle-aged folks, et cetera. Obviously, from a healthcare standpoint, we've had a loss of life like this country has never seen. And then folks who have long haul COVID, et cetera.
Yeah.
There's been, so many impacts, the immediate, short-term shutdown of the economy. I could go on and on, right? However, from March 2020 on, we went through this, and Earl and I were serious about our lockdown. We were like, we're not going out. We aren't seeing anybody. We're masking when we do have to go out. We're social distancing. So last summer, we were like, oh my God, we cannot take it anymore.
We got to get out of here.
Oh, we're going to go crazy. So we had a really fabulous summer vacation. We went away for many weeks. But I was like, you know what? Before I get on that plane and go out of this country, I have to get all of my ducks in a row. I already had a will, but I was like, I want to update everything. So we actually created an entire estate plan. So we have our trust in place. We retitled documents. We have references to healthcare proxies. We have legal and healthcare power of attorneys, that kind of thing. If something should happen to either one of us, where we've designated the other person to do decision making. So we put together a robust set with the help of an attorney, an estate planning.
Okay, I was going to ask that. Mm-hmm.
There are actually places online that you can do it if you don't have the resources immediately to pay for, to get a will or a trust or to pay an attorney, etc. You can do some services online as well. Trust and Will is one, for example.
Trustandwill.com.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
So,
I'll put a link.
but overall, what I would say is that it gave us such peace of mind. I mean, and it helped us, frankly, to feel more in control financially, because it was actually the culmination of some other record keeping and documentation gathering that we were doing. Unfortunately, because we have suffered losses in our family. So in 2021, Earl lost both of his fathers, his biological father and his stepfather. His mom had passed away. I think you recall this, Elayne, in 2018. Mm-hmm. And his grandmother had previously passed away, and he was an only child from his parents. So he inherited a lot of what we call the family arc documents, photographs and memorabilia and documents, all of which we started collecting and cataloging and putting together. So, of course, in the process of doing that, we also started looking at finances and saying, let's get everything really super organized on the financial front. So anyway, I don't want to go on and on telling you all about my...
No, this is good. I'm writing notes. You keep going.
But I'm just trying to say to our audience here that once you get that documentation together, whether you need a will or a trust or maybe a little combination of both, whether you designate someone to act on your behalf in terms of a legal power of attorney or a healthcare proxy, that kind of thing, you really will feel so much better. You'll be able to check off one of those things on your financial to-do list. And it'll put you in so much better stead in the future. And frankly, it'll take a lot of stress off your family, because if something does go wrong, people are usually like caught off guard for a minute, like, well, what should we do? I don't know what their wishes would have been, or if you become incapacitated in any way. Not saying you're going to die. Let's hope you live a long life, like Elayne's parents and then died. Earl's grandmother, Nana, she was 92 when she passed away. Mm-hmm. And so she lived a very long life as well. But the point I'm making is that no matter what age or phase you're in, it's never too early to start thinking about these things and doing a little bit of planning. Just like it's not too early to start saving for retirement for whenever it might be for you in the future. Some of us don't plan to ever retire. Some of us are like, I love what I do. I'm going to have a part-time. I'm going to do consulting. And some of us are like, I cannot retire soon enough. You know, right. I want to check out early as possible. So whatever the case, doing that upfront work, which often entails getting help. You know, there's no shame in reaching out, which is another...
Support is sexy.
There you go.
We talk about around here, right? Financial planning is too.
That's one of the key tips that I often tell people financially, because a lot of us sit with issues that we struggle with for so long. And I don't know if it's like that American ethos, that rugged individualism, kind of like, I got myself into it, I got to get myself out of it, or I made my bed, I got to lie.
I got to lay in it, right?
Right. No, you don't. No, you don't. You can ask for help
by yourself. Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. No, that's awesome. And I just want to share some tips, some insight here. Angela said, this is incredible. Please post to Twitter to expand the reach. Oh, Angela, thank you. I think, let me see. Let me leave it alone, Angela. You're about to make me mess it up. I'll post to Twitter after. There's a way to, I know, after, I don't want to disconnect it, but thank you. Excellent idea.
And I'll
yeah, Mr. Miller, and I'll send you it after, Lynnette. Mr. Miller, I don't want to mispronounce your first name. Sending Elayne some Hampton hugs. Thank you. Shout out to Hampton. Ashley said, this is absolutely awesome. Thank you, Ashley. And then Lynnette said, and Angela said, I just tweeted and I've learned so much in a short amount of time. Well, listen, Angela, we're about to dive in. If any of you have questions, please post them. Lynnette, I wrote down a couple of terms that I want to ask you about, but one thing I want to clarify and make sure people catch when you said it's never too early to start planning or thinking about these things. I also want to stress, and I imagine you would support, also don't think that it's just if you're married or just if you have kids or just as an individual, and even if you're married, even if you have kids, I think that peace of mind is so important, whatever the quote unquote status is at that time. And I think that's something, again, for me, if I didn't say it here, I know we talked about it before. It just, everything I'm managing and doing for my parents right now, which thank God I'm able to do it. And I'm mostly the one doing it because I'm here, which is why I moved here. Even that's something you have to think about. Can I relocate if I need to? That's a whole other thing, but which fortunately I was able to. But, it really made me think, even as a single person, whatever happens in the future, I can always adjust things. But right now, I don't feel like I have things like a will in place or a living will or what's the other thing? Estate planning you mentioned, and some other terms I want to ask you about. But just for everyone to have that in mind, that think about where you are right now, and then what kind of planning. I imagine that's what you're saying. All right, so I want to ask you, Lynnette. So the first thing, one of the things you mentioned was insurance needs. What are some, and anything that I ask you and you feel like you're not people should talk to someone else about that, let us know. I know you're the expert in all the things, but just so people aren't like, well, she said I should get, whole life insurance, whatever. We're not doing that. We're just telling you what to consider. So insurance need, I mentioned that I have long-term care insurance, and that's something that I actually got. I'm an entrepreneur, as most people know, but just mentioned, usually I think most places you might get it through your job if you opt in. If not, you can get it independently. The reason I first thought about that was my brother got very ill with ALS in 2008, and he didn't have any kind of long-term care insurance in place. And that's when I was working for a company at the time, and I still got additional insurance because it was so much on my parents to take care of him on the family overall to take care of him at that time. So when you say insurance needs, are there a couple of things that we should look at beyond just obviously healthcare?
Sure. So two things in particular. One is life insurance and one is disability protection. So life insurance obviously is meant to benefit your heirs, the folks who are left behind in the event that you pass away. Disability coverage is really meant to kind of protect your income stream. So let's talk about what you would want to look at or look for in both types of coverage. You mentioned whole life, for example. You're right. I'm not I don't sell any of these products. I don't sell anything, honestly, obviously, besides my professional services and my books. So trust me when I tell you, I'm not getting no life insurance commissions or anything like that. I'm just telling you what you really need.
We're just sharing the information, right?
So basically, there are two forms, generally speaking, of life insurance. There's sort of temporary, or what's called term life insurance. And it's called that because it's literally for a specific term, like 10 years, 15 years, or 20 years, right? That's usually lower cost insurance. And there is permanent insurance that you can have, that you're intending to have, that you're going to pay the premiums on until you die. So you're going to pay them forever. And 100% with certainty that your heirs, your beneficiaries, the ones that you designate as such, are going to get a payout. They're going to get what's called the face value of that life insurance policy. So now you can get a life insurance policy. A lot of people think, oh my God, it's going to be way too expensive. No, you can get a term life insurance policy really quite cheap. Obviously, there's a lot of things that go into it. Do you smoke? Do you drink? Right. Your age, your gender? They're going to look at all of those things, right? But generally speaking, sorry about that. I thought my phone was off.
Okay. That's all right.
But generally speaking, you can certainly get a life insurance policy. Let's say if you're in your 40s, I'm just guesstimating here. Don't quote me on this. You can definitely check out, insurance comparison websites. insure.com, insurance.com, and others, etc. But I'm pretty sure you can get something in the, $100-ish per month at, if that.
If that, yeah, I've seen some commercials for things like
$250,000 worth of coverage, etc. So now you were talking about if you're single. So you absolutely need life insurance, even still if you're single. And you were referencing earlier folks who are unfortunately 29, 39, whatever age, who might have died during the pandemic. Totally, again, out of the blue, something that none of us predicted, this coronavirus catastrophe. But what happens a lot of time when we find somebody who passes away young or when the family is ill prepared, we start seeing GoFundMe accounts. Families got to pass around that hat. They're kind of asking for even the basics to be able to bury the person. So that's why life insurance, even if you're single, even if you don't want to leave cash to a beneficiary like a spouse or to your kids, at the very least, you should have enough coverage, $20,000 or so ish, and maybe slightly more, to be able to bury yourself. So then that your family won't be burdened with that obligation. So again, yeah, if you're an adult, if you're working, and those who are watching us on LinkedIn Live, I assume you're professionals, you are working, or you're looking for a job, or you're continuing in your career, you absolutely need to have some life insurance. And again, the lower cost approach is to have term life insurance coverage. The more expensive option is to have permanent life insurance, and you can have whole life. There's variations, universal, etc. But in general, with permanent life insurance, it's usually going to be anywhere from 3, 4, or maybe even 5 times as expensive as term life insurance. Now, some folks are going to listen to this and say, well, why would I want to buy permanent life insurance if I can just get the term and it's cheaper? And if I can get a policy, the face value, I'll pay, $100 a month. And literally think, guys, about how much would it take you to save up, say, $250,000 or $500,000 or even $1 million. You can buy, again, a very affordable term life insurance policy. And if something happens to you a month or two later, the face value is still going to be paid out to your heirs. That $250,000, that $500,000, whatever the coverage amount that you bought, right? So that's the low cost method. And that's a surefire way, especially for younger people with families or people who just want to have a lower cost policy, et cetera, to have some coverage to protect yourself from the what if scenarios. Now that permanent life insurance, why would you do that? Well, I have permanent life insurance. We have actually both in our family, but
term life and permanent. Okay.
The reason is that permanent life insurance allows you to build up cash value in the policy. And with that cash value, you can do things with it. You can actually borrow against it. You can use it for other things. They have conversion benefits. Some, again, depending on which insurance company you go with, et cetera. But some of them have features that allow you to convert the benefit into other things. Like to pay for coverage. You mentioned it earlier about long-term care and things of that nature. So we do it. I'm able to afford it, and we go ahead. We have both. And again, we still have one minor child at home, our 16-year-old. So I've had my life insurance in force for so many years now, but I definitely advise people to do it. Elayne, I think also, I'm not sure, I think you maybe recall this, I have 5 sisters.
And
unfortunately, one of my sisters, Debbie, passed away totally unexpectedly in 2014, December 2014. She was 49 years old at the time. She had an 11-year-old daughter at the time, completely out of the blue. Devastating, of course, for our family to this very day. As a matter of fact, I saw an email that she had written to somebody else that she shared with me from 2010. I saw it yesterday, and I'm sitting there crying yesterday. And Earl was like, And I was like, Debbie, she was always so far ahead of her time.
Right. Wow.
But in any event, I was so grateful that my sister, who was like, one of my biggest idols, did so many things right. When I look at her financial planning, she did have life insurance. She did have a will. She did name a guardian for her child. So she had already had things in place, even though we had absolutely no idea that this would happen to her. Years prior, she had done proper financial planning. And so I'm telling you guys this story because tomorrow is not promised. You might think, you were saying, and I believe, Elayne, I'm sorry if I think you said your age, so I'm not.
I'm 110. No, I'm 49.
At 49, and like I said,
49.
My sister Debbie was 49.
49.
Away. And so again, nothing is promised to us. I'm wishing us all, like I said, many, many more decades of good health and longevity here, but you just don't know. So anyway, that's it for the life insurance. I'm going to talk a little bit about disability and then let's move on.
Okay.
So disability protection, I was saying, oh, and by the way, on the life insurance front, typically, financial planners and the American Council of Life Insurers recommend that you should have anywhere from like a minimum of 3 times to anywhere from like 5, maybe even as much as 10 times your salary. And again, it depends on your needs. So let's say you're making $50,000 a year. If you were going to have 5 times your salary, that means you'd have a policy with a face amount of $250,000. Okay. Mm-hmm. So that's just a guideline as to how much you need. But again, it varies because it's like, do I have kids? Do I want to leave behind money for their college fund? Do I have a mortgage that needs to be paid off? All of those things will be taken into consideration. And again, there's there's fintech companies that will give you quotes online for life insurance quotes. Lemonade, for example, is one of them. And so, again, I'm just sharing resources with everybody right now. Okay. Mm-hmm. So, all right, now let's talk a little bit about disability protection. So I mentioned pregnancy, being considered a disability when you're out, and I've had 3 kids. So I was out of the workforce while I was, having my 3 kids a long time ago. Shop is closed. No more kids.
I was going to say, didn't your youngest just buy a house or something?
Our youngest is 16. So
your youngest is 16. Somebody just got a house.
Yeah. So our oldest, she's 24. And yes, in the summertime, so we buy them their first property. We give our kids what we call a wealth starter kit. This is part of our way. We recognize, obviously, in the African American community in particular, there's a huge wealth gap, and we want to change some generational cycles here. So Earl and I have committed to, kind of launching our kids with what we call a wealth starter kit. So we buy them their first house. Well, first they got to listen and do what we say. Okay.
Right.
So
right.
The first part is be a good person.
Do what I say. Right.
Yeah. But the do what I say is really, it's pretty straightforward. There's not too many strings attached, but yeah, it's our money. So it is some that we say.
But just to be in a position to do that too is good, just from, again, taking care of your financials and, obviously working in those things. But, and Angela, after you tell us the story, I'm going to mention something Angela mentioned about buying her twins' property. Oh, great. So it's really just like, be a good person, follow the rules, stick to, stay on the straight and narrow. Don't be wilding out. OK. And so fortunately everybody's staying on the straight and narrow. And also go to college, hit those books. We expect excellence. We demand those A's. We want to see you really putting in the work. So our oldest daughter, Aziza, she did. We told them, we'll put you through college. You won't have student loans and you won't have to be burdened with that. Like, 3 out of 4 college students do these days. We'll buy you your first house and we'll buy you a car. And after that, you're on your own. Okay. Right. After that, good luck to you.
Live with us.
Right.
So, yeah, with Aziza, we did when she was, after her freshman year of college, when she was a sophomore at UT Austin, we bought her condo. Jakata, our son, same thing for him. He's a senior right now. He's 22. He's in Raleigh at North Carolina State University, doing very well there. After his freshman year and going into his sophomore year, we bought him his townhouse that he's living in right now. And then Alexis is our 16-year-old. And so, no, she's asking for a car before she's asking for the property. Okay.
Right. Like, what if I taught you?
Wait. So we bought Aziza a car also. We actually got her that after graduation. Jakata was like, I want to do it myself. I want to save and I want to work. So we was like, okay, so he bought his own car. So Aziza and her husband, because you were right that she got married right before the pandemic hit in January 2020, they got married. Her and her husband, Jacob, also a UT grad, an engineer, and they decided they want to move out of the condo. And they were like, we want a bigger place. We want to, So this past summer, they actually bought a house in Austin together.
Oh, nice.
So, so that's great. So anyway, I'm just telling y'all all my.
I know. I do it. You know why? Because I tell all my business, and I encourage other people to
They're
tell.
Gonna be like, "Mom, okay, really?"
I know. I've been telling my parents. They're like, "Were you talking about us on the internet again?" No, that's great. You were telling us about
disability front.
Disability.
I'll make this 30 seconds, and then let's go to her question.
Okay.
If you, get into an accident or are disabled in some kind of way, disability protection, most people may have some coverage on the job. But the thing is, you need a supplemental disability policy or supplemental coverage. Typically, the insurance that you get on the job only pays about 70% of your salary, roughly speaking. And y'all know, most folks can't even live off 100% of their salary. You're spending over that. So getting 70% is not going to cut it. Plus, who else is going to be dipping in there? Uncle Sam, right? Taking taxes. So a supplemental disability policy can help you as well. Okay, I'm going to pause there and let's go to the questions.
Awesome. Oh my gosh. I feel like we could talk to Lynnette for 2 hours. We might have to see if we can get her back maybe later this summer, but I have a whole list of things here. And one of the things that Angela mentioned is a trust, which I'll just say real quickly, something I didn't think about. So my dad was in the military for 25 something years. We thank him for his service. And when I was looking for a place for them, the people at the independent living center were giving us all this resource. Again, you all know I'm all about support. I'm like, give me all the goods. What do I need to know? What can they do? What kind of help can they get? Fortunately, I was, I'm not blessed. I am, but my parents are, thank goodness, planned for retirement. They were putting money away. I don't even know if they thought to plan it. Just at that time, their generation knew you work for a certain number of years, you put your money away. So thank God they have great pensions and everything. And they're not in a situation where, we're struggling but still there are a lot of benefits and things that a lot of us don't know about that are available, especially in this case for the military, for example. Mm-hmm. So one of the things I learned, Lynnette, is about with my dad, if he wants to get benefits or if he passes first and my mom wants to get benefits afterwards, about when they sell their home, which they're going to sell the house they have here to move and then move in there, putting the money into a trust so that it doesn't, I'm saying this in the most layman of terms, so that it's not
eligibility.
Yes, if they want to eventually if they want to apply for different kind of veterans, not even assistance, but things that my dad is, has access to for having served in the military. But that's not, I would just thought, you get it, you get the money, put it in the bank, they'll have it to, spend off or to give to everybody when they pass. But we talked to a lawyer about this. So I mentioned that to set up with Angela, mentioned the word of trust. So we can talk a little bit more about that. But here's Angela's question, which I think might have gotten cut off, Angela. So you might have to tell us some more. But I have deaf twins and I want to purchase them a property and put it into a special trust. But I don't know if I need a financial advisor to help set that up or a law firm. That's the first part of it. My concern is finding an institution to handle their financial health past my death. I also have a policy from is it the VA, IBWAS? The VA. Oh, she was in the military. The VA. I was in the military, and we will put $200,000 into the trust. But I am looking for another policy because VGLI will eventually increase in price. I'm not sure what that is, which will not be affordable as a larger policy. She said, my twins will receive SSI, and I just want them to be able to have affordable housing throughout their life. They left me in California and moved to Texas because it was so expensive. I was shocked but proud. All right, excellent. Thank you, Angela. So one of the things is with setting up the trust, do I need a financial advisor or a law firm?
Law firm. So you're going to definitely have to have an attorney to draw up those documents on the trust side. If you're, again, going the professional route, I mentioned there's ways you can establish a trust with, using online services too. But if the comparison is between a financial advisor and an attorney, I would go the attorney route. Also, people need to understand when you create a trust, the big thing is you have to title your assets or retitle them and put the assets into the trust. So like if you have property, let's say you have a house and you've created a trust, that's fine. You can have your documentation, but then you need to retitle or put the house as an asset into the trust. So make sure that you do that. She mentioned also VGLI, and if I'm not mistaken, she was referencing life insurance, saying that I think she was
veterans life insurance.
I think she was saying the premiums are going to get to be more expensive later on. So one of the reasons that people buy life insurance earlier is because they try to lock in the premiums at an age where it's more affordable for them. So obviously, just in general, the older you get, the more expensive life insurance is going to get. And then also in terms of being able to get it. Again, not just speaking for veterans, but just anybody. I want to give the concept that, again, once you start aging, if you start having certain medical issues or conditions, you might not be able to get the life insurance coverage that you desire. So that's another reason why earlier is better.
So one of the things, so I'm not, well, let me think. I guess it sort of is an endorsement. This isn't a paid endorsement or anything, but because Angela, you mentioned this as a veteran, we're talking about my dad, and this is how I learned about the trust. Again, this is a resource that was given to me by the Independent Living Center. This, I don't know if you can see it, but anyway, this organization called Patriot Angels. Have you heard of that, Lynnette? Patriot Angels is it's an organization for veterans, and this is how we found out all this information about what we should do when my parents sell the house. What kind of benefits do they have? That's the word I was trying to think of earlier. Benefits might they have access to for my dad or for my mom if my dad passes, because she's the spouse of someone who served in the military. So I'm going to put these links in the, Angela, make sure you check, but I'm going to put these links in the comments so you all can see the things that Lynnette mentioned and this one. But I would contact Patriot Angels, Angela, since you're talking about a house and property, and talk to them about what kind of benefits you might have access to, or just other resources. This isn't the only company like this, I'm sure, but I had never heard of it. And I learned so much about and my dad he's one of these, I guess maybe that generation, or one of these men who don't even, I don't need any benefits, I'm fine. I'm like, are you kidding? We need to get all the things.
One other thing, because this is also super important. I mean, hats off, of course, to your dad for his service to this country. That's an amazing thing that he did, obviously, and should be lauded. And he's totally deserving of every benefit that he has coming to him and for which he's eligible. One of the great things about being a veteran is that there's a huge range of benefits. And I just want to really talk to my people out there who have parents or family members, or if you've served and your kids are, doing some other things right now. You would be shocked at how many benefits people can get that they have absolutely no idea about. There's things ranging from free college tuition to low-cost mortgages. For veterans, you can get a VA loan, for example, and you can have no money down. Things of that nature, or closing costs that are covered for you, and things, so you should totally explore every benefit. Anytime you're looking to do anything in the financial world, I don't care if it's a house, a car loan, a student loan, a business loan, or anything else, you should ask or inquire or think about, or even anything health, of course, related, if there's something for which you qualify as a veteran, or your dependents, or your offspring, because kids can sometimes even take advantage of the benefits that their parents had. So I definitely want to encourage everybody who has a veteran in the family, See what you can take advantage of. That'll help
exactly.
you.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I'm just so you all know, I'm all up in it. And I'm like, good. And with my dad, I will tell you, with him, he's proud man, thinks he's more open to it now, I would say. But for him, the thing that made him say, oh, okay, let's look into it. Because I said, but my mom could potentially get some of these benefits too. So that's the thing too. All the people around you, and it's just sort of like, this isn't even just about you. This is also a way that could help the whole family. So another thing I wanted to ask you before we go, well, there's thousands of other things, but one of the other things I wanted to just share, Angela, I hope that helped. Anyone else? Let us know if you have
a question.
Yes, thank you.
Attorney, yes.
That's right. And but I wanted to share too, this just from a mindset standpoint, what is how important is it, or should we reiterate how important it is to not only think again, if you have stuff, or if you have, by stuff I mean, whether it's property or a painting, my artwork is something I'm going to leave to, some of my girlfriends, or it's not just, I think, again, I keep talking about my parents just because I'm in this phase right now. When I started talking about all of this with my dad, like a will, a lot of older generation, they don't like to think about a will because it's associated with death, even though hopefully you all see Lynnette and I are saying, no, it's associated with peace of mind. Absolutely. Right? So, but don't think, my dad right away, we don't have anything. It's like, what are you talking about? You have a house, you have stuff in a safe deposit box, you have, but he's just thinking, oh, we're not millionaires, or oh, we're not, whatever the thinking is there that we all, we all probably struggle with. Or like I said, I could be in the space of, oh, well, I'm not married, or oh, I don't have kids, so I don't need. No, really looking at where you are. So can you just speak to us about mindset?
Absolutely. So you raised such a great question here, and it's a great way for us to end this conversation. So we're talking about planning. Listen, when you die without a will, it's called dying intestate. And that means basically you didn't have a will, and now the state gets to come in and decide what should happen to your property and what should happen to any minor children that you have. Now, chances are what you would have wanted to happen with your living room furniture, your art, your video collection, your wedding ring, etc., or to your child, to whom your child should go live with or, have to be raised by. If the state has to decide that, that's probably not going to be what your wishes would have been. So yes, the will can help you to bring about peace of mind and some decision-making and control in the process too. And so don't think for a moment that, oh my God, I need to have so many assets or X amount in my 401k or
wait until I have, this or that. Right.
Absolutely not. Honestly, for a lot of folks, the biggest family drama and arguments come not over all the cash, but like the personal stuff, like who's grandma's china, or, oh, this was mom's wedding ring, or, it's the personal stuff, honestly, that even matters to a lot of people. So you can designate, of course, in your will, not just here's what, cash I have and things of that nature, and the items that you think are, quote unquote, valuable, but also personal things that might be legacy oriented for you, right? That might be, I mentioned Earl getting the family arc with all of the family photos and images and memorabilia. We found out that his grandmother, we found out that Nana actually got married. Nana, who was living in the Bronx in New York, who helped to raise him in New York, actually got married here in Houston, where we live, like 30 minutes from where we live.
Wow.
And it was because we found the marriage documents and all of those records, which to us are priceless,
Yeah, I'm like that too about those documents.
So again, you have to think beyond the traditional, stuff and assets in that regard. And also from a estate planning, from a financial planning standpoint, understand that, there are elements of the will that are public. It's going to have to be probated or proved through the courts, and that there are different elements that, let's say there are different assets that go through probate and different assets that don't go through probate. So sometimes people think, well, I created a will and the will just said, here, give everything to this person, to my spouse, or leave everything to my kids. No, it doesn't just work like that, because there are some assets that pass via what's called beneficiary designation. So like life insurance, for one, is one of those things. I don't care what your will says. If the life insurance paperwork says, here, I'm giving the money to this person, that person is getting the money, regardless of what your will said. So you have to make sure your beneficiary designations are updated. Things like retirement assets. So like your 401k, et cetera, or your 403b, if you work in a nonprofit, or 457 or thrift savings program, those kind of things, if you work for government. Again, you can have a beneficiary that you designate on that, and that will be passed outside of the will. So I just wanted to make that clear to folks too, so that they don't accidentally think like, okay, I did it. I made my will and I said, here, I'm just going to give everything to this person or to my, to this charity or wherever. Understand that some things pass outside of a will as well.
And last thing, thank you, Lynnette. This is all, hopefully you all have enjoyed this as much as I have. I always learn so much when I talk to Lynnette. I think our podcast interview was like 2 or 3 hours, so you got to go listen to that. But one thing I want to share too, lastly, that I've learned, and this might sound like a simple, you should just know this thing, but a financial advisor we were working with, as we were getting things in order, told us this: make sure you know where the stuff is. So if your mom or I was like, oh, that's true. She's like, so your parents have a safety deposit box, and I'm on the box and on their accounts and those kind of things. She's like, do you know where the key is, Lynnette? I was like, no. I was with my mom. I looked there. I was like, where is the key? Right. So if something happens, I'm tearing up the house looking for this itty bitty key, just as an example. Or again, paper, like I knew where the will was. She told me this is here, this is there. But even also all these papers that they had in the safety deposit box, these insurance things I didn't know they had, burial, just it's a whole other thing. But again, I thought I knew, but she really was like, no, you really need to know where these things are so you can go right to it. Again, it's peace of mind. So my parents and I try to make it fun so it doesn't feel like we're prepping for if you die. It's just like, we're trying to get things in order. Let's sit down, let's order, food and go through all the papers. And I'm taking pictures of, marriage licenses and my grandmother's birth certificate and things from the midwife. So, it can be something that's not, like you said, it ends up being family history. Yeah, exactly. So that's another just simple thing that at least I didn't realize until I was in the midst of it. Like, wow, I really don't know where some stuff is. Or even now with giving away things for my parents with their different items that, they have things in the will, but I've called my sisters. One's in Texas and one's in Carolina. And I was like, if there's stuff here that you want, you got to come get it. I'm like, I want the lamps, grandma's lamps, everything else, come get it. So I'm taking pictures and they're like, I want the grill, I want the table, I want this. So again, you can be something that is a family experience. Hopefully, again, it's during a time when things are well, because I will say, and Lynnette, I'm sure you know this, it's hard to do those things when someone has passed.
Absolutely.
And you're trying to figure all that out. Yes.
Yeah. The time to do it is before, I'll say, so 2 last comments. One, absolutely know where your documentation is and tell somebody,
right.
Make sure that a trusted family member, person you designate, maybe it's the person who you've named as executor or executrix, depending on the state that you live in, et cetera. So absolutely. We've told our kids too. Yeah. So they know actually where all of our estate planning documents are. We have a big binder, a leather binder with everything together. Then the last thing I want to say is, because you were asking about the types and the forms, and I threw out a couple of terms before. So I want to make sure that people understand the difference between a will and a living will. So a will is, just like we explained, something to indicate what should be done with your assets, your minor children, et cetera. And you can make specific provisions in the will. You can have a trust element combined with your will, et cetera. You can do those things. Then there's the living will, which is, that's not a will like, it's a if I die kind of thing. It's more of an advanced healthcare directive. So it's telling healthcare providers really what you want. Like, would you want to have life-saving measures taken? Would you want to be put on oxygen or not? So it's those kinds of things. And some people have very strong opinions. I do. I was like, save me. Try to save me.
I thought you were going to say pull the plug. My mom was like, pull the plug, plan the funeral. You're like, keep me on.
I was like, no, I'm a miracle worker.
Right. Give God time to work it out.
I was like,
right.
No,
I know that's right.
You know, you can,
right.
y'all don't have to visit as much. Just let me stay there, whatever. So,
right.
So,
oh my gosh, that's great.
So you're telling kind of what you want, what kind of interventions or not what kind of interventions you want, that kind of stuff. So, and again, in all of your estate planning documents, you can lay out a whole bunch of things. People starting to put their wishes, like what kind of funeral they would like to have for themselves.
Oh, yes.
Do they want to be buried or cremated? What kind of music they want played? You know, all kind of stuff. So anyway, I just want to make that clear as well. So
thank you. And one of the things, Lynnette, the same woman told me too, you mentioned having your things in a leather binder. She was telling us to get a firebox, fires safety, whatever it's called, you know, the things. Yeah. So whatever's not in the safety deposit box or anywhere else, I think those are fireproof. I think it's called firebox or fireproof box. But if you have your things just in some cabinets tucked away, you might want to put it in something where, God forbid, if there's water damage or anything like that. And last thing I'll say, I knew about power of attorney. We have that in our family, but durable power of attorney. Which is, from my understanding, if, you know, say I have power of attorney for my parents, but if they get to a point where they can't make their own decisions or unwell, right, you still have the power of attorney. So there's so many terms, you know, we're throwing out here, just things to think about. I know it probably for most financial advisors would be in an estate planning kit, I would imagine. So we'll put links again to all the resources that Lynnette mentioned here. Hopefully my brain is about to explode. Hopefully this is helpful. Lynnette, thank you so much. You know, I love
talking. Very welcome.
Yeah.
Same here. We always have such great conversations and
and tell all our business.
Yes, and tell all our business too.
Exactly. Thank you so much. I love you and love all the work that you continue to do all these years later. And just really appreciate you. So thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Again, if you happen to catch this later, please leave a question in a comment and I'll make sure I go ask Lynnette what the question is. All right, Lynnette. Oh, and share it too. Yes, please share. Definitely. Great job, Queens. David says, thanks, David. That's a great way to end. All right, hold on, Lynnette.